Welcome to episode 19 of the Whatnauts Reactor Core. This is a podcast where we talk about hot, brand new entertainment, big blockbuster movies, streaming shows that dropped all at once, anything we want to dive into and give you a full breakdown on the week it comes out. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined by Kyle Springer.
Hello, we nailed it. Third time is the charm. Yeah, we've had some technical difficulties here, but I am excited to be here.
Yeah.
This one is a long time in the making.
Yes.
I'm excited. We are talking about Artemis Fowl this time. The brand new movie that just hit Disney Plus, based off of a hit series of novels. And yeah, it's been like 20 years in the making. Oh boy.
Yeah, to fill in the audience, this is a young adult fantasy book series, came out like a couple years after Harry Potter. And I, for one, picked up the first book the year it came out. I was 10 years old. And in the back, there's a little ad that says, if you break this magic fairy code that appears in the book, you could win a role in the upcoming Artemis Fowl movie. So this has been promised since the books debuted 20 years ago. And we've been waiting for this movie for 20 years. And the properties have changed hands, and it ended up in development hell. And it was supposed to come out like last May. It's gotten delayed twice.
Disney
and now
bought
finally
Fox, and then
right. A lot of things have happened, and then finally Disney was like, okay, this is a streaming service thing. We'll just put it on Disney Plus, which is good for me, I suppose, because this means I just get to watch it over and over again in the privacy of my own home as an adult nerd who should have had this movie when I was actually the same age as the characters in the book, but it didn't happen.
There you go. So, fun fact, I have never actually read Harry Potter by myself.
Oh.
I've always had other people read it to me. Same thing goes for Artemis Fowl. I've never actually read those books like myself. When I was younger, that's something that my dad and I used to do, is we would just had a book and he would read the book to me. And we would do like a chapter or two each night or something. And we've read most of the Artemis Fowl books. It's been years since we've read one of them. But I think we made it to like the fourth or fifth one. So it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there are 8 books in this series. The last one came out in 2012. I have read all of them, especially the early ones I have read multiple times. And I'm in the middle of rereading the series now. I'm like partway through book 5. So this is all, I know an obnoxious amount of details about this.
Good. Because as much as I am a fan of this series, I don't remember much of what actually happened in these books. So that'll be helpful. But we're here to talk mainly about the movie.
Yes.
And all of that stuff. So we'll do what we normally do our general thoughts and all of that stuff, and then we'll do some housekeeping and get into spoilers. So Melissa, now that we have finally seen the movie, what are your thoughts? Did you like it?
I did like it. It takes a lot of departures from the book, but it does. I understand the departures it takes. Making this book into a movie, first of all, is challenging enough, and making it for a completely different audience 2 decades after it was written is also a challenge. But I see what the movie's trying to do, and there's a lot of little details in it that I do appreciate that are pulled directly from the books. Like it was a fun time. I've watched it twice. It's not everything I hoped and dreamt it would be, but I'm just very happy it exists at all. I'm happy to have this instead of no movie at all.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat, but I didn't like it as much. It's kind of what I expected, though. Like I didn't expect it to be amazing, but then I kind of forced myself to set my expectations lower when I saw a review on it. I think it was IGN. They gave it a 4, and I was just like, oh, okay. Well,
it's not excellent. I don't know if it's a 4. I might put it at like a 6, 7-ish.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, it's something that I lowered my expectations on, and then going in, I felt a lot better prepared of just like, oh yeah, like it's not a great movie by any means, but I still had fun because I got to watch this movie based off of a book that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. And I think the word that I would use to describe it is cute, if that makes sense. Like
I can see that, yeah.
It's I mean, yes, you could say it's more for like younger boys than maybe it is for younger girls. So cute might not be the word you want to use to describe it in that sense. But I think when you just look at it in hindsight and just like what is happening and the friendships that are made and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, this is nice. This is cute.
Yeah, the movie's got a good heart to it, even if a lot of the relationships are different and there's a lot of character development that's off or that feels weird because they're trying to put some it's more than just like the first book. Like they're trying to put some development from later books into this movie. The movie's also only 95 minutes long, and it does feel kind of frantic trying to fit so much into 95 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, don't expect greatness, but it's good. Yeah,
it is pleasant.
Popcorn flick. Yeah, it's a pleasant film. So there you go. Synopsis. Let's do a synopsis of the movie, just a short one for people who might have not checked it out yet and are still on the fence.
The movie takes place in Ireland, and there's a 12-year-old boy named Artemis Fowl II. He comes from like a very rich family, and his father, Artemis Fowl I, is like an antiques dealer and like an art curator. And his dad teaches him all about the fairy world, all of the old fairy legends and like Celtic mythology. And his dad goes away on a business trip and doesn't come back. And then Artemis sees this news broadcast that's like, well, we've found the remnants of Artemis Fowl's boat, his mega yacht, and it's led us to this and this. And we found out that it looks like he's been stealing art throughout his entire career. And the little Artemis is like, well, my dad's not a criminal. My dad's a good guy. And he uncovers that fairies are real. Fairies have always been real. And going back through the generations, the Fowls have been the human protectors of various fairy relics. And his dad had some mysterious fairy relic called the Aculos that now these bad fairies are after. And so he has to like fortify his mansion from all of these fairy forces that are going to converge on him and try and steal this back.
There you go. Indeed. Yeah, so it's a good little action adventure movie. There's not very many big set pieces. It kind of all just takes place in the Fowl Manor. There's a few like CGI sets. But yeah, it's not a big movie. It's actually kind of small. So there you go. Yeah, I think we should get into housekeeping and then move on to spoilers and start breaking the plot down a little bit more and talking about it. So if you guys did not know, here at The Whatnots, we have multiple podcasts. You guys can find out more information on our website, thewhatnots.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. If you guys like what we do, patreon.com/thewhatnots is where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. Since we do this show periodically, it's not a regular show. You might not have noticed, but we actually took a week off here at the Whatnots because of the Black Lives Matter protests going on in the United States as well as around the world. And we have decided to donate all of our Patreon money this month to the ACLU. So if you want to join us in that, you can join us on Patreon. Once again, that's patreon.com/thewhatnots. However, if you would like to donate directly and you don't want to join our Patreon, that is absolutely A-okay too, because after all, it is not about us here at The Whatnots. We want their voices to kind of be uplifted, and that's why we took that week off. So if you want to donate, we would love to get a receipt of your donation, just like a screenshot or something, so we can see, and then at the end of the month we'll total it all up and see how much we raised. That'd be good. That'd be fun. Let's see. That being said, you can get all kinds of episodes early on our Patreon. You can get all kinds of bonus content. In fact, we just started putting up some Patreon exclusive content from the Reactor core. Here, Melissa, you and I just watched a bunch of movie trailers from the 90s and reacted to those, and that was a lot of fun. And we have some more of those coming down the road as well. So, good stuff. Be on the lookout for that. Last but not least, we would like to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you, Sam, for helping us out and keeping the mics on. We appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
It means a lot, for sure. So, okay, house has been kept. Let's see if we can get into spoilers here. There we go. Spoiler graphic.
We have gotten into it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works unless you tell me.
What I need to do is figure out how to make like a custom, I don't even know what you call it, I guess, audio device on my computer. I know you can. I just haven't looked into it yet on a Windows thing where I can basically route all of my desktop audio to you. That way, so you can hear all the jingles, you can hear all the spoiler stuff, or if I'm playing the trailer or something in the background, you can hear it too. We'll figure it out down the road. Maybe this next week. That's what I'll do. But yeah, spoilers. So let's start I guess at the very beginning of the movie, which is actually kind of the end of the movie.
Yeah, it kind of loops around. The first thing we see in the movie are all of these news reporters converging on Fowl Manor, talking about how Artemis Fowl I was found to be this criminal. He's attached to this band of all these secret conspiracies to like steal all these artifacts and art pieces from throughout history. And we see the law enforcement taking away Mulch Diggums, as we will come to know him, who's a very prevalent character in the books.
Yep, very much
and
so.
Then
he was always one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, this is a different take on Mulch than in the books, but I still enjoyed it, and it's played very consistently. It's a nice performance that Josh Gad gives in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I liked him as much, but it was more so because of his voice. There was something that was just like overly cartoonish. It was this like raspy voice, which I didn't mind as much. But then he does this weird thing with the volume of his voice, where it seems like he's screaming the entire time.
He does.
And I was just like, this is a little weird.
Raspy screaming.
Yeah, but he's also the narrator, which is why I was also just like, this seems like a weird choice. It's like this overly raspy, cartoonish voice, and he's the narrator? Like that, I don't know if I like that, but...
He is an odd choice out of all the characters to be the narrator.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the butler would have been a better choice to narrate it, but maybe not.
Oh, I feel like the movie is served well by there being a narrator, because the books have it's just heard in this like it's told in this like third person omniscient style. And there is a lot of information and a lot of backstory and a lot of jokes packed into just the way Eoin Colfer writes the books, things that are outside of character dialogue and internal monologue and all that. So I understand this movie needed a narrator. But yeah, Mulch would have not have been he serves it well enough, but I do think about, like, what if Artie was narrating it? What if Butler did? What if Holly did?
Yeah.
What if there was just like an omnipotent narrator, like it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something?
Yeah, something like that I think would have worked well. But besides that, I thought Mulch was fun. Like you said, in the book, he's a little bit different. I think in the book, he actually is more of a dwarf. Like, I never pictured him as a, like, human-looking character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this movie the books have a large cast of fantastical characters, like elves and dwarves and fairies, and there's a centaur. And it is interesting to see how they are translated to the film. When we get eventually to the underground fairy city, there's a big variety. There's entirely CGI creations of, like, these little imps. There's actors that have, like, CGI over them, like with those goblins where you can tell it seems like there's somebody underneath that in, like, a mocap suit or whatever. And then there's a lot of just, like, humans with prosthetics on. It's a little bit of everything, and I did kind of appreciate that it wasn't all like an entirely CGI creation, that we had some just good old stick-on pointy ears to rely on. But yeah, some of them do look like almost a little bit too human.
Yeah.
Mulch in particular, like, they cast a lot of little people to play the dwarves, and then it's just regular Josh Gad, however tall he is. And they make this joke that he's, like, weirdly tall for a dwarf, like he's this, like, he's got this medical condition where he's too tall and none of the other dwarves accept him, and he wishes he was shorter. And he's like, I'm just like 3 feet taller than I need. I don't like this.
Yeah, he kept saying he was like Dwarfus Giganticus.
Yeah.
Or something. So it was just like, okay.
I don't remember if that's in the book. It might be something where it's like, Mulch is a whole 2 inches taller than most other dwarves. Like, it is not exactly like that in the books. And I could tell that Kenneth Branagh just worked with Josh Gad before and was like, I want him back. I'm going to bend a lot of stuff to get Josh Gad in this.
Yeah. Mulch Diggums gets arrested. He is brought to this kind of solitary confinement prison, where he is interrogated by all of these cameras. He's not sure, and we are not sure who is talking to him in this movie, and they are asking, about the fowls and who they are and the fairies and all of that stuff, and they don't really believe in all of that stuff, and he's just sitting there like, it's not me you need to look out for. it's Artemis Fowl, and it's not the father either, it's the kid.
Yeah. Like, everybody thinks the father is this criminal mastermind, and he is, but for the specific plot that Mulch is being investigated for, it's like, oh no, you need to talk to the 12-year-old boy.
Now, remind me this. In the first book, is the father still alive? Is he still there? Or because I seem to remember that we thought the father was dead in the first book.
Okay. See, this is how the book's plot goes, because the movie takes the basic framework of it, but changes a lot of the details. In the book, Artemis knows that his family has a criminal past. Right. Like, the Fowls have always been, like, just legitimate enough to avoid any kind of persecution from the law or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They've always had, like, secret shady dealings. And his dad is considering going straight. And he's like, I'm going to do one last criminal mission, and that's it. Then I'm going to come back, and the Fowls are going to be, like, real legitimate business people. And Artemis Jr., in the book, his mom calls him Artie and calls his dad Timmy to tell them apart. So Artemis, he's really embraced his family's criminal history, and he's kind of dreading, like, oh, I have to stop stealing and forging things? Oh, I don't want to do that. And while his dad is off on this final criminal mission, his ship sinks. And he goes missing. And Artemis holds out hope. It's like, no, that wouldn't have killed my dad. I believe in my dad. I know he's got to be somewhere. Maybe somebody kidnapped him and is playing the long game. They just haven't contacted us for ransom yet. And everybody else is like, he's dead. He's dead, and you have to move on. And then with him out of the way, like the family's finances are suffering. Artemis's mom, Angeline, goes into this depressive state. She's like locked in her room all day, sleeping, crying, going through these mental breakdown fits where she forgets where she is. She looks at Artemis and thinks it's like, oh, that it's like her husband back when they were young, or she looks at Artemis and thinks that he's his grandpa. She's really lost in time. And so she's the only adult Artemis has left in his life, and he feels like he can't count on her because she's so ill, and it's just him and Butler. And in the books, it is his butler. That is his bodyguard. In the movies, it's like that's his dad's bodyguard and confidant and second in command, who then takes care of Artemis when his dad goes off on these missions. But yeah, so Artemis, the family, he needs to find his dad. The family finances are in ruin. And then he hatches the plan. He finds out, he stumbles onto like the fairy lore, and he gets deeper into it, and he realizes it's real. Everything is real. And then he hatches the plan to, if I can kidnap a member of the fairy law enforcement when they are above ground on a mission, I can ransom them, and the fairy police will give me all of this gold, and I can use that gold to fund a rescue mission to find my father. That's the kickoff point for the first book.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll get into a couple of details of the second book in a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, so Mulch is like, hey, you need to watch out for that kid.
Yeah.
He's the smart one. Which is then when we meet Artemis Fowl in here. What did you think of his performance?
I think it's a decent performance. This is a very different Artemis from the books. In the movie, and I understand why they did this, he's more of a normal 12-year-old boy who happens to be very, very smart. And in the books, he's like an incredible genius to the point where he can't really relate to other people. And he's been raised in this like rich criminal family. So like he's very sharp.
Give us a little bit of that in that like school thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it like his performance came off to me as more robotic than it was like, I'm so much better than everyone in this room, and I am also an evil criminal genius. You know,
right, we're seeing
just like, I'm a 12-year-old and I'm smarter than you. This is not fun.
Right. Yeah, in the books, he's already a criminal genius, so he's that going for him. He's also like, here in the movie, this is an Artemis that wears like a t-shirt and a hoodie. He goes surfing in the ocean outside the Fowl Manor. He's riding like this sort of skateboard type device through the woods. And in the book, Artemis is always wearing a designer tailored Armani suit. He never does anything physical. Like, he just hides inside and just studies and does experiments all the time. And he's just this like prissy, fussy, standoffish, sharp little child man who can't relate to anybody.
He's the criminal mastermind that knows not to do his own dirty work.
Yes.
And just like, I'll have someone else do it, or I'll manipulate them so that they do what I want them to do. And this one, he's a lot more like a kid. Just like what you would expect a kid to be.
And I understand that somebody looked at this book and was like, this is very hard for an audience to identify with. Can we normal this up, please? Can he wear a t-shirt and do a sport?
Yeah. So we see Artemis's father go on his next criminal mission, or I guess we don't know exactly what. He was just like, I have to go for work and all that stuff. And then his helicopter crashes, and his father disappears. And so it is a whole similar thing of like, is his father still alive? We don't know exactly yet. But very quickly we come to find out that his father has actually been kidnapped by the fairies by a fairy by the name of Opal. I don't remember the last name.
Opal Cowboy, who is one of the
Opal
big
Cowboy.
threats in the book series. She's the villain of like 3 different books.
Oh boy, it's Cowboy.
Yep.
Yeah, so his father is captured. Then Opal makes a call to the Fowl Manor, in which Artemis picks up, and he's like, "Hello, I have your father," and he's like, "Well, I have a very particular set of skills, and I will find you, and I will." No,
he's just a boy. He's just like, "Who are you? What's going on? Where's my dad? Can I talk to my dad?
How'd you get this number?"
Whereas in the book, he would have everything recorded. He's probably got a degree in negotiation tactics.
Yeah, he would have he would somehow have software to like get rid of all of the voice modulation and changing and stuff like that, and he'd be like, "I know exactly who you are, Opal Cowboy." And he's like,
Yes.
"How did you know?" No, it's not that hazy, but still. Yeah, so that kind of sets us off on the adventure of how does Artemis save his father?
And I want to mention that in the movie, his mom is mysteriously dead. This is something like the first time we meet Artemis, he's like talking to like the school counselor, and the counselor's trying to like get through to him. Like, "We hear you're really arrogant and you're hard to deal with in classes." And the therapist is trying to reach him at his own level, and Artemis is just sitting there like, "That chair you're sitting in that you told me was an antique, that's a fake. I can tell. I know what a forgery is." But the therapist mentions like, "Your mother was a fine woman and taken from you far too soon." Like, we don't know how she died.
I feel like it's one of those things where they were just like, she's kind of a non-character anyways. What if we just, don't include her?
Yeah, and it's
that
not.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of get it. Like the role the mom plays in the first book, because of the changes they made to the plot, that role kind of disappears. It doesn't serve the same purpose anymore. It's harder to set up. Because in the book, the dad's already been missing for 2 years. And if they wanted to tell a story where the dad just disappears and we see this happening in Artemis in real time, you're not going to get that same characterization out of the mom. I get that there's a lot of other things that they wanted to prioritize in the movie. And she says one sentence and then she's dead, which I guess I kind of appreciate more than like if they tried to do more with it, like, "Oh, your mother." Like if they talked about her more, I feel like it would have been more glaring that she's just a non-entity.
Yeah, or just odd of like, well, why do you keep mentioning her? Is she dead? I don't know.
I was wondering if we were going to learn something later in the book, like, "Oh, and your mom was up with fairy technology also. She's been in on this whole thing. Yeah. Your mom's off on a research mission or something, and then we thought we lost her. And then it turns out, oh, she's like, "I finally escaped from Atlantis, guys. I'm back."
Yeah. So Artemis kind of has to figure out where his dad is and see if he can rescue him. He does this by basically remembering this like bedtime poem that his dad used to tell him all the time. The Irish blessing. Is that a real thing?
It is. Okay. Yeah. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. This is a real Irish blessing I've heard dozens and dozens of times throughout my life. So on one hand, I kind of appreciate that they did pick something. This is a very Irish movie,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
I was watching this last night with a friend, and she's like, "Oh, normally if a story is not in America, it's in England. I don't think I've ever seen a young adult story set in Ireland like this." So that makes it kind of unique. But to focus, so I feel like this Irish blessing is such a almost stereotypical thing that it's the equivalent of if the story was set in America and the clues were hidden in "Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam." Like it's almost like
That's great.
too neat of a pick. yeah,
Oh,
before,
man.
like, his dad would, like, tell him the Irish blessing every night before bed, and then when Butler leads Artemis down into his dad's secret lair of, like, fairy technology and artifacts and studies and stuff, Artemis somehow, like, uses that blessing, he uses that little poem, and he, like, looks at, like, the library shelves around the wall, and he's able to, like, pinpoint what it is he's looking for. Like, oh, dad wanted me to find the journal. He had the clues to the journal in the poem. Da, 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 there it is. Like, we don't exactly see his thought process like this is Sherlock Holmes or something. So I'm not entirely sure how he arrived at that conclusion. But I do appreciate that the movie's like, no, we're not going to stop and spend time on that. Just trust us. He's smart and he figured out a puzzle. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I buy it.
Yeah, I buy it, but on the other hand, like, that was one of the things I loved so much about the books, is that he was this genius, and him figuring these things out was not necessarily instantaneous, but you got to see how he arrived at that stuff. Or he would say, like, he had a plan, and then it was like watching his plan unfold was the whole thing. And I don't feel like this movie really did a good job of diving into that and stuff like that, of just, like, explaining that this kid is actually a genius. Instead, it was just like, trust us, he's a genius, but we're not going to really show you.
Right. There's a neat part in the books where Artemis gets a hold of, like, the fairy Bible, essentially. It's like this little book that every fairy carries around with them that is their history, you know, their virtues, their rituals, all of that. And it's written in this fairy language. And there's a scene in the book where he's trying to figure out how to translate the language, and he's figured out the characters, but he can't figure out how to actually read the book. And he's like, okay, right to left isn't working, left to right, up and, you know, vertically. He's trying everything, and he stares at it, and he's like, wait a second. And he, instead of doing it on the computer, he prints the page out, and he starts cutting, like, lines out with an X-Acto knife and rearranging them because he's figured out, I think the text goes in a spiral. I can't configure my computer to read that because no human language reads like that. Let me stop and do this with my hands and lay this out for me. And then once I get it, then I can teach my computer how to read the code in a spiral. It's a really neat moment. And and here in the movie, it's just sort of, he figures this out. He gets it. Like, we don't spend any time on, like, the research and the study and the, like, coming to terms with, like, the puzzle solving and, like, the coming to terms with, okay, fairies are real. That's kind of throwing me for a loop. How do I use this now?
Yeah. Even further down in the movie, like, when he has the plan to steal the Akelos thing, like, he says he has a plan, but we never hear what that plan is, or, like, why he's doing these things. It just happens, and it's just like, okay, I guess that was his plan. I don't understand why, but sure, that works.
The movie glosses over a lot of points that I wish we did get to spend more time on. I wish it picked its detail breakdown scenes a little bit better.
So yeah, he finds out fairies are real, which he kind of knew but didn't really believe. But yeah, then he finds out all of that stuff is real, and that's when he starts hatching his plan. So let's jump over to the fairy world and start meeting and introducing some of those characters and stuff. We've already kind of talked about Mulch. Mulch Diggums. He is also a criminal, though he would call himself an artist. He is a tunneler.
Yes. What dwarves can do is that they can unhinge their jaws and eat the dirt and process the dirt and basically fart it out the other end, any of the waste that they don't need. They are human tunnelers. And this is preserved in the movie, and I appreciate that they didn't shy away from that. Later on, we watch Josh Gad unhinge his entire jaw, say, like, it's feeding time is what he says. It's feeding time. And then he dives into the ground and eats a bunch of dirt, and then it shoots out through, like, old-time heart boxers.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I did feel like him unhinging his jaw and diving in to make this tunnel was less of a joke than it is in the book. This was actually more scary than I expected it to look.
It's such a jarring, bizarre image.
Yeah, and then they do this thing where he's in the tunnel and the the camera is you, the wall, like the end of the tunnel, and you just see him like chomping at you, but it's like dark and dirty. You
lit
can't
by a
really
headlamp.
see much. Yeah, it's weird and it's scary.
I appreciated it. I'm glad they didn't shy away and try and make this normal. They're like, no, we're gonna make this exactly as weird as it is in the book.
It's not that it needs to be normal. It's that it is this joke that he farts it out, that he poops it out, and he has this butt flap on his outfit in the books. So half of the book, his butt is just hanging out, and it's just like, oh, his butt's out. He's about to tunnel. And it's just like it's this whole fart joke. Right. And they don't make the fart joke with. I mean, they kind of do, but it is not enough.
Yeah. This is taken down from the books quite a bit. But what I mean is that I like that they kept it in at all and didn't make it like he's just a regular tunneler, like that guy in Atlantis, the Lost Empire, Mole. You remember there's like a tunneler character,
right? The real thing or.
Yeah, I like that they didn't try and like clean it up to where it's like, oh no, yeah, he's just good at digging, with tools like any other person. Like they didn't go as far as the books did, but they kept the fact like, oh no, you're going to watch him unhinge his jaw several times. It's going to look frightening. We're going to let it be as frightening and as jarring as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that would be frightening, but it's just like I don't know, man. This is a children's movie. But yeah, so we see him. He has been arrested. He is being processed and put into jail. It looks like he is being put into their supermax jail. I forget what they called it.
It's called Howler's Peak, which is the jail in the books. That's a detail that came directly from there.
Good. Yeah, and he's just like, oh, I've been here before. I'll be out soon enough. I'll be fine. Meanwhile, we also see Holly Short, who is
my hero.
Yeah, one of, if not like the best characters in the book series. She is fantastic. What did you think of Holly and her performance and the whole fairies and their technology and stuff like that?
I liked Holly. She does have a very different feel to her from the book because they changed the context of her character. In the book, she works for the Lower Elements Police Reconnaissance Team, or LEP Recon is the joke in the book.
Yeah.
And she's the only girl on the team. Like,
which is actually a brilliant move. Just like, oh, leprechaun. Yeah, I get it. It's like, that's good. I like that.
I feel like Eoin Colfer wrote that joke and then wrote the rest of the series around
and then wrote the book after that.
Right, but she's like really dedicated to her job. Like, she loves like the action and the thrills of it, but also has a real dedication to protecting people, making sure people are safe, following the feeling of the law, not the letter of the law. Like, she's been a rule breaker, she's been a rule bender, but it's always to the point of, look, I do whatever I need to keep everyone around me as safe as possible. If my commanding officer tells me, no, it's too dangerous, don't go into that situation, I'm still going to disobey orders and go in there if I believe I can help somebody. And she's like the only girl in this boys club of this law enforcement team. She's trying to break through, like she's trying to get noticed. And in the movie, the team's much more diversified, which is good, but it takes away that whole element of her character. She's just sort of like another officer. And they add on this entirely new backstory for her, that her father, Beechwood Short, centuries ago stole the Aculos, this prized fairy artifact, took it up to Earth, up to the ground level where we live, and gave it to the humans, and like sort of betrayed everybody. And this is kind of the conflict she's dealing with in her professional career now.
Yeah. Yeah. She's, she also kind of seemed like they were making her a little bit more normal, a little bit more kid friendly.
Yeah.
Because who was the actress that played her? I think it was Laura something. Let me see. Holly Short. Laura McDonald. In this role, I don't know if they did much to adjust her height of like how tall she actually is. But yeah, she does seem like she is more girlish, if that makes sense. Like she not in a like more feminine way, but just like she is more of a kid. If that makes sense. I don't know. How old is Laura McDonald? Does IMDb say here? Let's see.
I'd be curious to know, because Holly, Commander Root mentions to Holly, "You're 84. You're young."
Yeah, well, so fairies live a long time.
Yeah.
Because it's Commander Root, who is her boss, right? Who's like, I'm like 804 or something.
Yeah,
I forget what she says. But yeah, she has this like childlike face with these really girlish features, and it does put her on par more with Artemis. So I liked that.
Yeah, I appreciated that. In the books, it's a little vaguer. It seems like maybe Holly's supposed to be the equivalent of being like college age, maybe. In the movie, you look at her and she seems like she's 16 or something, and Artemis is 12. You're right, that does kind of close this gap between the two of them and make them more peers, which is something that they eventually come to in the book through all of this strife and disaster and fighting and saving each other. Yeah, the movie does a lot to put them more on each other's level. It makes her younger, and giving her this new backstory with her dad makes her a very neat mirror to Artemis, that both of them are dealing with these parental legacies, and they don't know how to handle them.
Yeah, oddly enough, I hadn't seen the movie that I'm about to mention when I first read these books, but in my mind, I always like oddly kind of pictured her as like a John McClane from Die Hard type of character. But she is just more of this like everyday like I'm a cop, but I'm like taking like I will take the extra steps necessary to actually keep people safe and stuff like that. And she, will go the extra mile, but was still the action hero, which in this one she's a lot less of the action hero. She is more of a kid and is still figuring things out and is like wanting her peers to notice her and stuff like that. Notice me, senpai.
There's a bit later in the movie where her like mechanical wings that she has as part of her flight suit get stuck in a chandelier in Fowl Manor, and it's during this big action scene and it keeps cutting her and she's like, my wings are stuck, help me, somebody help me. I'm like, in the books, Holly would figure her own way out of this problem.
She'd just like use her gun, or she'd like taunt the troll to come knock the thing so it snaps, and but yeah, so I mean, despite that one scene, I didn't really feel like they damseled her, or like damsel in distress. Like she was competent. She did know how to do all that stuff, but that scene in particular, I feel like everyone was kind of damseled in distress. Like no one knew what to do or how to fight this thing. They were all just like, I hope this works.
I like this Holly, but I miss some of her scrappiness that she has in the books. Yeah.
So, good stuff for her, though. But yeah, I mentioned Commander Root, who is like the leader of the police, the leprechaun horse there. I don't really have much to say about her performance. I thought it was good. That was kind of exactly what I expected.
Yeah, this is in the book. This is This is a male character who kind of represents like.
Didn't remember that.
Oh, yeah. Commander Julius Root, who's like what the public expects. He's like this grizzled old police chief, and like he sees the potential in Holly, and he's like, you know, I believe in you, kid, but as the one girl on the team, you gotta work harder and better than anybody else to prove yourself. But I'm on your side, but I'm gonna give you tough love. Like, that's who he is in the book. And the characterization is similar enough in the movie, but it's played by Judi Dench, which is neat. She's growling the entire time. You were talking about what Josh Gad is doing to his voice. Judi Dench she's talking like this. And okay, fairy team, we're going above ground.
There's that one scene. I think it's her and Mulch, right? Where they're talking, and he says something along the lines of like, "But do we have to do it this way, where we're just grunting at one another?" And her response is just.
There's a line I really appreciate in that scene with them later. In the books, Mulch has no respect for authority, and he's the one person who always calls Commander Root Julius. Commander Root hates it, but can't get him to stop. And there's a bit where Mulch is talking to Root in this movie, and he says, where is this? He's trying to like get on her good side, and he's like, Commander Root, do you mind if I call you? Actually, I don't know what your first name is. Like, he's trying to do the same thing he would do in the book, but in this, because, you know, they changed the role. It's like, oh, I don't imagine Judi Dench's name is Julius anymore, but they don't tell us what it is now. Right,
could be Julia.
Yeah, like they don't tell us. I like this nod to the original source material combined with a nod to look at how we've changed it. Yeah, I like that joke better than if he did start calling her Julia or something.
Yeah. Now, why am I blanking on the name? The Centaur's
Foley.
Name? Foley. That's
another
right.
one of like the best characters in the book.
Yeah. Foley was good. Some of the animation was a little bit strange, I thought, but then it's one of those hard things to think about where you're just like, well, if centaurs actually did exist, how would they move? Like, what would they look like when they run? And you're just like, I actually don't know, so I'll just let it slide.
Yeah, you did as good of a job as anyone can.
Yeah.
I like this Foley. Foley's a character who's not described physically very well. It's just like, yeah, he's a centaur. We don't know what he looks like. We don't know what he's wearing. So it's this guy with like his half his head is shaved and the other half is like this long, straight hair, like a mane.
But it's super, super long that it looks like it's just falling down.
And he's wearing this like crisp uniform coat, and he's like prancing around the circle of holograms like
he also has
Iron
a skirt
Man.
On. I think most of
like some sort of a kilt in the front. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's all this very cool, polished looking setup in the movie.
If horses could wear pants, how would horses wear pants? Would it only
come
be
here
on
to
the
answer
back
this
two
today.
legs or on all four legs? So it sticks with a kilt.
Yeah. The simplest answer, the Occam's razor.
Yeah.
No pants.
The centaur's kilt.
Yeah, in the books, Foley is literally the guy in the chair figure, and I was so disappointed that this movie did not show me what a centaur chair looks like.
Just him trying to sit in one.
God. Like it's like a wheelie office chair. I'm like, show me what that looks like for a centaur, please.
Oh,
this
that
is
would
all
have been
I've
great.
ever wanted. Right, like the way he is in the books,
amazing.
In the movies, it's like, yeah, there's Foley. He's a genius. He built all this stuff, and he's just sort of at Commander Root's right hand, like feeding her all of this techno information. And in the books, it's like, no, he's like a genius on the level of Artemis Fowl for the fairy community, and he's also like just pretentious and a jerk and really sarcastic and really snarky, and like nobody really likes working with him, but they can't get rid of him because he's programmed
so
everything.
Good. Yeah.
In the books, he's more of like a Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park character.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was expecting. Like, he's like, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt because nobody can stop me. You know, my console's covered with snacks. I just have this little office where nobody can bother me and I don't bother anybody. It's all like screens and wires and junk food. And like, Holly and him are both kind of misfits on the team, so they're best friends with each other, even if they don't really connect to other people. I love him in the books, and I like him in the movie too, but it is more like, he's just like, yeah, I'm just another smart person on a team.
He was their like IT person in this, and he just seems like an IT person, but not like the sleazy IT person. So the whole thing with the fairies is they have like super high tech, like their technology is years and years more advanced than human technology, and so I think with Foley specifically, we kind of see that where he is this much more sleek, suave character for an IT guy.
Yeah. This is a really pretty movie. Like, I like the designs of everything, but it is almost too shiny and glossy and good. Because in the books, all of this technology exists, but there's also a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that the fairy law enforcement is dealing with, to where, like, yeah, that stuff exists, but our team doesn't have it. Our team has got like 2 or 3 generations back in the equipment with something old that we have to like clean up and try and use again. Like, everything in the books is really like, it's kind of makeshift and scrappy and like, okay, this isn't the top of the line stuff, but it's got Foley's tech in it and we can make it work. And he can, like, I've got him on my helmet intercom. He can talk me through like MacGyvering this thing into being what I need it to be. And like, everything in the movie, it's like, yeah, everything is perfect and shiny and new and it works as expected.
Yeah. So he, like we said, he is their tech guy. Holly is sent on a mission to kind of investigate some weird occurrence that is happening up on Earth. Turns out it's a troll. This is where we are kind of introduced also to Foley's tech. They have this like time-stopping technology that puts everything in this bubble. It stops time in that bubble, and when that bubble is done, time like speeds up. In that sense, we don't really get to see it at this wedding party that Holly is investigating, but when we see it later on at the Fowl Manor, we do see like the day and night cycle happen really fast when they take it down, because it has to catch up with everything else.
This is not exactly how the time stops work in the book, but I appreciate that they were in here at all. And it is kind of a neat sequence. Like, I was watching this with a friend who read one of the books once when we were in middle school. So she's like, I have kind of a sense of what everything was, but she really didn't remember it. And so I'm getting this outside perspective of like, oh, this is like the Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men movies. Yeah. These are fun. This is cool to look at. And
yeah, that was a neat scene. Indeed. But yeah, so then that kind of introduces us to that side of things. Then we cut back to Artemis Fowl, who is preparing his plan and all of that stuff. And he is now wanting to capture a fairy to see if he can figure out where this Aculos is, or to see if, like, hey, if I kidnap you, maybe I can trade you back for the Aculos or stuff like that. And they end up capturing Holly Short, who was supposed to be going back to Fairyland. I don't remember the name of her city. Haven City. Nailed it the first time. And they end up capturing her. And from what I remember in the books, Holly being captured kind of was the start of the first book, if I remember correctly. Or that was like the big event of like someone is captured and in jail. Like, I don't really remember Mulch being in jail. Like, that scene where he's in jail, he's tied up, all of that stuff. I remember that being Holly in the book.
Okay. In the books, so Artemis has figured out he's gotten a copy of this fairy book, even though his fairies are real. And if you kidnap one of them, you get this gold ransom. And he figures out that fairies have magic, but they need to replenish their magic with a ritual. It's like, okay, you plant an acorn from an oak tree at like a bend in a river on a full moon. You plant it, you like say a poem. It's the poem that she says later on when she does activate the Aculos. So I'm glad even if the context is different, that still got in there.
Gotcha.
And this replenishes your power. So Artemis has figured out, like, geographically, this is a place where a fairy would go and like commit the ritual. Like, let's hide out there in like, the hunting bunker, and let's just kidnap the first fairy who shows up. And it happens to be Holly, who, like in the movie, she's just finished this troll mission. And in the book, she's going there to complete the ritual and like re-up on her magic. And in the movie, she's like, well, this is the last place my dad was before he died. I'm taking this opportunity now, centuries later, to go try and clear my dad's name. Yeah, so in the books, that is Artemis's goal. He's like, I am going to kidnap a fairy. And then he's got her holding her for ransom inside Fowl Manor. He's got like an old jail cell for her. He's built in the basement. And then like it's the rest of Lep Recon who's like set up a time. They've put the manor in a time stop, which doesn't freeze everything like Quicksilver. It makes sure that everything within the bubble is slowed way down. And here there's something where like they can only, like they can't be out at dawn. Like they can't do it until dawn. Like they have to do everything at night. So they put this time stop up so that lets them have like 12 hours of night. Like we are making midnight to 5 a.m. last the entire day so that we have all of this time to do it. And then outside the bubble, like, oh, everything's going real slow. And then that's where they bring in mulch, because they're like, okay, we can't figure out how to penetrate Fowl Manor. Mulch, you can dig underneath. You can sneak in there and get it. Also, there's a fairy rule where you can't enter
like vampires.
Yes, yeah, you can't enter another domicile unless you've been invited. If you do try and do that, you get sick and you sacrifice your magic because it's part of ancient fairy law. Yeah. And Mulch, being a thief, did that decades ago. He's like, yeah, I don't care. It's fine if I don't have magic. I just want to sneak in places. So that's why they bring Mulch in. Like, you have nothing to lose, and like we'll offer you time off your sentence. Tunnel in there, find stuff out for us.
Yeah. So Mulch tunnels in. And he's meant to go steal. Well, this is one of those things that they kind of glossed over. That I was just like, I don't necessarily understand what Artemis's plan is exactly.
Yeah,
he had Holly Short kidnapped, so that he could get the fairies to come negotiate, so that he could trade her for the Aculos. However. Unbeknownst to us, we still don't know where the Aculos is, but it seems like Artemis does. We also know that the fairies don't know where it is. I think there was a line earlier on in the film that it's been lost for centuries and stuff like that. So
the Aculos in the... No, I just wanted to say that like the Aculos in the movie is like a textbook MacGuffin. It's just a thing everybody's after. It's not anything in the book. It might be something that's mentioned in like the last couple books that I haven't read as often. Like I've only read once or twice in my life. The first couple books I've read over and over again, like since I was 12.
Yeah.
That's not in there. It is not a thing. It seems like they might have just invented a MacGuffin for the movie. So I honestly didn't pay attention to tracking it that closely because I recognized it as like, it's just a plot device to move things along. Yeah. I want to pay attention to all the characters. I don't care what they're doing because I know it's not anything I recognize.
So Mulch Diggums makes his way into Fowl Manor. It seems like he's there to break Holly out, but as he's walking down, he's like, oh, this painting looks a little strange. Huh, that's weird. And he opens it up, and it's a safe. And then he picks this safe using what little magic he does have, and he uses his beard to, like, pick the lock and do all of that stuff. And he opens it up, and he finds the Aculos. But this whole thing is taking a long time. The fairies are getting impatient. all of that stuff. So they decide to send in their next weapon, which is that giant troll that we saw Holly stop at the wedding a few scenes prior. So they use this guy as a battering ram. They shoot him in the house, and he just causes chaos and mayhem in this. We did already kind of mention that Holly gets stuck in a light. Her wedding gets stuck in there, but everyone is kind of helpless in this scene because this thing is just so big and so strong and so just clumsy that it is just chaos within this house. The one scene that actually made me laugh was right before this moment as they're watching this troll like fly in, and Holly is like, I'm gonna need my gun back, and then Dom, the butler, starts like reaching into his back pocket to get the gun, and he's just like, it's not there. And then we see Mulch reach back into his pocket and he hands it to her because he's a thief and a pickpocket.
That is the best joke in the movie. That's very much out of the books. Not exactly, but like the spirit of it is.
Yeah.
The books are so funny, and I wish the movie was funnier. There's like at that scene at the wedding, so this troll shows up. It's about to attack everything. The Leprechaun team like stops time. There's this giant Quicksilver battle, and then the Leprechaun team is to try and like put everything together before the time stop ends. But then it ends, and everybody in the wedding's like, "Well, everything. What? Why is everything moved? Why is there stuff on my dress? Why is the furniture knocked over?" And like we see one wedding guest turn to the other and say, "What a strange wedding," and the other guy says, "Absolutely." And I'm like, that's not a joke. Like, couldn't they have just looked at each other? Like, you could have accomplished this with a look. Why are they saying things we already know? Oh, the books are so witty, and I really miss that.
Joke about like too much alcohol, or did someone spike the punch?
Something just like that. It's a cliche joke, but it is a joke.
Yeah, like that was just a non joke.
But there are bits I like. I also like when it's Butler that's staking out Holly and trying to kidnap her, and Artemis calls him over like the walkie-talkie, and he's like, "Anything to report?" And Butler says, "Yes, I'm freezing." And Artemis just says, "Understood." Just keeps on going with all of his technical talk.
So something else that I kind of want to bring up now that we are talking about this fight scene in the Fowl Manor with the troll. Juliet, the character of Juliet, I have no idea why she was there in this entire movie. She was completely useless and did not need to be in this film. And I was just like, why is she here?
She has a lot more to do in the books. Let's talk about the Butler family as a whole.
I kind of remember her from some of the books. I don't remember her that well, but like I know that she is a character, but it was just like, why is she here in this one? Like she just really does not need to be here.
In the movie, no, she doesn't. I appreciated that she was included just because it's like some version of this character I remember from the book, even if like her circumstances are very different. There's enough of the Juliet spirit in there that I recognize and appreciate. So in the book, it's Butler, and this is a joke that didn't get into the movie, and I wish it did because it's so good. Like, this family is named the Butlers, and they've been doing this bodyguard service for so long. This is where the term butler came from. The noun came from this family lineage that has been protecting and serving and like taking care of the very rich families and powerful families like for time in memoriam. This is why we have like an answer the doorbell butler, because for centuries we've had like big, brutish, I'm here to protect you and also help you run your household butlers. They don't make the joke in the movie. They just say like, here's Domovoy Butler. Do not call him the butler. you could call him Dom or Domovoy. And I'm like, no, you can't call him that. Because there's something in the books where it's like the butlers, if you have a butler, they are known as butler. Like, you do not know their first name. This is secret. And there's a part in the third book where he's like on his deathbed and Artemis is like saying like, oh, don't worry, old friend. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And Butler, I'm going to get you out of this. And Butler's like, just call me Domovoy. And Artemis is like, oh no, things must be really bad if he has told me his first name. So that knowledge is in there, but like they rarely use it. It's something that's only pulled out for like really emotional moments. So the fact that this movie's like, yeah, Domovoy, this is what we call him all the time. Like, that didn't strike me very well. Because I'm like, I liked how this worked in the book. You could have made this work the same way in the movie.
Yeah, it would have been so much more interesting.
It was really jarring. And also in the books, Butler is Artemis's bodyguard, and they come to realize and like express to each other, we are friends. I care about you.
Yeah.
Like, it's a journey they go on from like employer-employee to we are friends. Let's talk about it. And here in the movie, it's like, friend, mentor, bodyguard, here comes Domovoy. Like, you skip past all of this early stuff. I like you, but this could have been a little bit closer to the books. This was the one thing that I was fussy about.
They like skipped all of the character development and was just like, let's have the developed character. And it was like, well, that's cool and all, but now we get no character development. So he's just this like cardboard cutout butler kind of thing, like bodyguard thing. I don't even know because you can't develop this. But yeah.
So in the books, that's Butler and Artemis's relationship. Butler's little sister, Juliet, is training to be a butler, and she's sort of stationed at Fowl Manor to watch over Artemis's mother. And so she's just sort of this other point person there in the house who's also part of Artemis's team. Like, when he's running this whole operation, he's out there dealing with like the Leprechaun team, and it's like Juliet's job to watch over Holly, who they have imprisoned in the basement. And Juliet's real charming in the books. Like, Butler's very disciplined, and he knows all of these ancient warrior moves. And Juliet's like, I love pro wrestling. And she's trying to incorporate this ancient, battle training that every butler has. But she's also like got this
people's elbow.
Yeah, she's got like a big flashy flair for it. She wears a lot of makeup and like jewelry and stuff. And it's a study in like how he's very streamlined and serious and practical. Like, and she's trying to live up to that family legacy while also being her own fantastic self.
Yeah, like, see, that's a great character, but it just doesn't really fit into this first story.
It does not.
At all.
I agree.
The fact that they cut out Artemis's mom, but then decided to keep Juliet just kind of baffles me. I'm just like, well, technically you don't need either of them, but why keep one of them if you're willing to cut the other one out? Like, they're just strange.
Yeah, she was not necessary, and I could very clearly see the story would get along basically the same without her.
Just fine.
But there's little bits where like she's wearing the mirrored sunglasses and like grinning at Holly through like the prison bars. Like, are you a real fairy? I don't know what fairies eat, so I brought you a salad. Like, that's straight out of the books, and that felt so warm and familiar to me that I'm like, that bit is the Juliet I know.
Yeah.
In this movie, they also make her Butler's niece instead of his kid sister, which I think does make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge age gap between the two of them in the book. And like, there's a massive age gap between me and my older brother, but it's like 13 years. And in the book, it seems like it's like 20 plus years. Like, it's large enough that it feels like there's something there. Who are your parents? What's their relationship? It's so big. I'm like, can we get into this? Because I have a lot of questions about this one.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, that's his kid sister. He's ambiguous, and he's been serving Artemis since Artemis was born. So even if he was like 18. He wouldn't have been 18 at that time but he's been there for at least 30 years. And then Juliet's like 16. Like there's a huge gap between them, big enough that I wished it was like discussed a little bit more. And I understand that the movie's like, that's his niece. That's why she's so young. Like, okay, I'm with you on this one.
Sure. Yeah, that's unfortunately kind of one of the things you get from movies based off a series of novels, especially one that's maybe a little bit past its time. Just like you never really know if it's going to be a hit or not. So you have the dilemma of like, do we stick strictly to that first book there and make sure that we stay as true as we can to that book, or do we try and cram as much of it into one story to show people how cool this whole series is and hope that it plays well as a movie? Just one singular movie in case we don't get a sequel and stuff like that.
I was watching this movie and recognizing how checkboxy it was. Like, okay, we have to fit all of this stuff in here. And it's just like, here's Juliet. She's not organically here, but here she is. Here's Briar Cudgeon. Here's his storyline. Like, all this stuff is shoved in there. And it felt like they're going down the checklist of, here's everything we really wanted from the books. Like, tick, tick, tick. I'm like, I can see what's happening, but it's like really kind of frantic and a little baffling. And this is a book that doesn't totally make sense from the perspective of being either something that fans recognize or something that an everyday person recognize. Because I was also watching it like, if you show this to just a person, I bet this would be so bewildering. I don't know if this really makes sense to anybody.
Yeah, just the fact they gloss over so much, I think will lose a lot of people. Just like they're not explaining any of this.
Yeah, why are there so many characters people in this movie?
Yeah, they introduce characters that like they seem like they're going to be important, and then they basically just don't mention them again, or they have like one scene. Like you just mentioned Briar Cudgeons. We haven't talked about him at all. I now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember in that like first book and in that second book too, there is kind of this like conspiracy plot going on in the fairy police of like he is the spy, he is the one that's trying to kind of take over and do these things. As we see in this movie, he's kind of released by Opal, and then it's like, okay, you're gonna spy for me. And then he has like the one scene at the end where he like tries to do a coup, and then they're just like, yeah, we're not gonna listen to you. And then they don't, and then they move on. And like it just like it's so like I remember that being a bigger deal, like more stuff about the cops and the fairy police and stuff like that, and what was really going on with them. Is that the case?
Yeah, Briar Cudgeon is the second in command, I think, or like somebody like approximately on Root's level, and they've always been like professional rivals, and Root is doing everything he can to get Holly back because she's one of his team, and he's bending rules a little bit, and he's like, look, if we have to send in the gold to get her out, I'm going to do it. You know, if I have to get Mulch out of jail to send him in there to try and help us, I'm going to do it. And Briar Cudgeon represents like the voices of the council who are like, don't get him out of prison. We're not giving away any gold. If we lose an officer, it's tough, but we lose an officer. So that's the perspective he has. Gotcha. It's not any larger conspiracy. It's just like all this. There's so much fairy police bureaucracy in the books that I understand that they're like, let's not put this in a kid's movie. The kids don't care, but I missed it. So Briar, he does have his own coup because he's like, I want your job. And I think I can talk the council into being on my side to say, you're not fit to do this job anymore. You are going way against the interests of fairies at large. This is just this is a too personal of a mission for you. Like, you're out and I'm in. And then he is taken back down by the end of the first book. And then in the second book, he's been like fired, disgraced. And that's when he teams up with Opal Cowboy. And she's like, I think I can get you back into LEP recon and get you Root's old job like you always wanted to.
Yeah.
Opal's another
odd... It wasn't really a like conspiracy thing. But yeah, there is more of the like police bureaucracy and stuff like that. So
Opal's another odd thing about this movie, that she like kidnaps Artemis's dad and is holding him hostage somewhere in the Arctic. And the second book is called The Arctic Incident. And it's because like in that storyline, after his dad's ship crashed, he was like being held captive in Russia by these Russian mobsters who do secretly have ties to Opal Cowboy down in the fairy world. It's a lot more complicated. It didn't need to be in here. But in the movies, it's like, okay, like I know it's a nod to the books that they're in the Arctic, but this is not explained within the world of the film why we're just cutting away to the Arctic and where we are and how this fairy got here. And in the movie, Opal's like she's got like a voice modulation thing on, and she's shrouded in these dark robes, and you never get a reveal on her. You never see or hear her for who she truly is, which is a weird choice, that she is this shadow figure the entire time. Because typically when you see somebody who is that obscured, you're like, okay, there's a reveal coming later. We're going to get to really see this person.
It was Foley the entire time.
But no, we don't.
No,
it's a really strange choice that Opal is the same the entire way through the movie, and they don't put any kind of twist or drama on her. Like, she's really just textbook antagonist, shadowy villain who threatens you with a spooky voice. She doesn't have any of her characterization from the book.
Strange.
Yeah.
I don't really remember much about Opal, but I do remember she was more involved in that second book. Yeah. And I think there is a book that does focus more on her. I think it is the like third or fourth book.
Yeah, the fourth book. Yeah, the fourth book is called the fourth book is called The Opal Deception. She's the villains in books 2, 4, and she's spoiler alert, the final threat that comes back in the final book.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I don't know. Just some very, very odd choices. I understand them in the sense of like, hey, we have to make this into a cohesive movie and stuff like that. Like, maybe we cut out this part because the children won't care about police bureaucracy and stuff like that. But yeah, it didn't seem to hold up for like a cohesive plot.
Yeah, instead of making the story narrowed down, they kept the breadth of the story and just made everything shallower.
Yeah.
Like, I would have liked to have seen like several fewer characters and plot elements, but a little bit more time spent on what we do get.
Yeah. So let's see. They beat the troll. In the meantime, the kind of time warp thing is collapsing because Butler has shot it with some kind of like fairy arrow thing. So things are also chaos outside. But they beat the fairies back. They're just like, hey, this thing is collapsing. We need to retreat. All of that stuff. The movie basically ends with the fairies going back down to Haven City and Holly basically being... Well, so we should mention this. When they beat the troll is about to fall on Artemis, but Butler knocks him out of the way, and instead the troll, which is this gigantic beast, falls on top of Butler. So he is dying. However, Holly can't use her magic because the fairies have put a magic freeze
they
on
turned
the area.
The magic off, which is not anything that happens in the books.
Yeah, I thought that was strange.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the fact that they have the technology to block it if they want to. Like, that makes sense. Like, we have EMP devices, we have signal jammers and stuff like that. Like, it would make sense that if their technology is that far advanced, maybe they have something that can knock out magic, right? So Butler is dying and Holly can't save him, but at the last second, it comes back on and Holly saves Butler, so he comes back to life, and they use the Aculos to bring back Artemis Fowl Sr., who was also kind of just about to die at the same time because Opal was using some kind of magic spell to, like, I don't even know what it was, like burn / corrode / cover him with something. I don't know. But they save him at the last second, which brings him back to Fowl Manor, which he then sees Holly, and he's like, hey, I knew your father. He was a great man. He was the one that entrusted me with this Aculos to keep it safe, all of that stuff. And so they're just like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. You can keep it still. And that's kind of the end of the movie, and that's where we reach back around to the start, where Mulch Diggums has been found by the local police because some strange things have been happening at Fowl Manor. They arrest him and bring him out to this like solitary confinement thing with a bunch of cameras. It's like me sitting here right now speaking into this camera, or like Melissa, who right now cannot see me because I only have one web camera. All that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But yeah. And he's like, it's not the kid. He's like, it's not me. It's not the father. You should be worried about the kid. In fact, he should be here any minute now. And then, yeah, they bust him out and save Mulch. And that's the end of the movie.
I don't really know where they're going. This movie, the pacing is odd.
They can't do the second book because the father is back now.
Right. They could skip ahead to the third book. But even then, like, I don't think we've got the setup we need for the third book. The third book is called The Eternity Cube. And Artemis has taken fairy technology that he acquired during this assault on his manor. Like he'd like steal their helmets and guns and stuff like that, all the equipment they would leave behind. And he's dismantled it, and he's built this supercomputer, and this other tech industrialist steals it from him. And he comes to the fairies like, okay, guys, I screwed up. I need your help. We have to get this technology back from him, because if he figures out how it works, he can, like, track it back to you. And Artemis is like, I wanted to use your technology for my own gain, but I am still with you on keeping the fairy world a secret. Like, that, I don't want anybody to find you guys. I care about you that much, at least. So they have this another mission together, and at the end of the book, they're like, Artemis, we need to erase your memory of everything fairy related because you were too much of a liability to us.
Yeah. Which so, then in the, like, fourth book after that, he somehow figures it out again, and, you know, all of that.
Right, then they're like, Opal is back. The only person who can take down Opal is Artemis. We have to reactivate his memories again.
Man. Wild stuff. Wild stuff.
I don't know where
the books are good. The books are a lot of fun.
The books are wonderful. Like, the first book in particular is really strong. And subsequent books are also. It's not like it petered off at the end, and it's also not like it had a slow start and picked up later. The first book is very good. I've read it God, like 5 times throughout my lifetime. I really appreciate it. I know these, as proven through all this discussion, I know these books pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, this is almost closer to my heart than like a Harry Potter or anything else is. I recommend the books thoroughly. And this movie, it's frantic and messy. And some of the changes I get, and some of the changes I don't get, but I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I just go along with it. And like everything looks different and a lot of things feel different, but there's enough of the emotion and spirit of it carrying through that it has still charmed me enough. I feel content. There's a lot more I would have liked out of a movie adaptation of this, but I feel okay about it. Like, there's certain bits I really liked. The scene with Mulch in the prison talking to the goblins is almost directly out of the book. I wasn't expecting to see that scene. That was kind of fun. Fowl Manor looks perfect. Like, every time they're in Artemis' study briefly, I'm like, oh, this is what the study should look like. Like, there's little bits that are, like, really exact. And, like, Artemis and Holly's friendship plays very differently in this movie. And I kind of prefer how it is in the book, but there's bits here in the movie where they, like, reach out to each other. And it still feels enough like the book that it still, like, gets my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have that one... I mean, they have the whole thing of, like, fairies have this mind control power that if they look people in the eye, they can kind of do this Jedi mind trick thing. And so that's why we see all of the reflective sun glasses. But then they have this, like, do you trust me? Well, I kind of need to right now thing. And then, like, by the end of the movie, they're like, so are we friends? And they're just like, yes. And it was just the most, like, really? You met her 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, in the book, it is a lot more nuance and it takes more time. And because it takes more time, the payoff is greater. The book is so much payoff. Like, because Artemis is so shut off from everything. He's not even that close to his dad in the books the way he is in this movie. Yeah. And it's watching him slowly open up and, like, learn to trust people and to see them on his level and to recognize what an asset friendship is. And for other characters to see, like, look at this boy who's caused them all this trouble and still see the good in him and want to encourage that. The way everybody, like, bonds through all of these dangerous missions. It's really rewarding. Yeah. And this book, it really has, like, the Spark Notes the movie is like the Spark Notes version of all of this.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of final remarks on Artemis Fowl, the movie?
Oof. I've got a lot of little things.
Something that stands out. What's the one or two more things that you want to just say?
I wish he was in a suit the whole time. I miss his constant tuxedo wardrobe from the books. I wish he was a little bit closer to the way he is in the books, but this kid in the movie is still endearing enough. Oh, at the end of the movie when they're flying away on that helicopter, the code on the the call numbers, like, painted on the outside of the helicopter are EIFMN1. So when you look at it, it says Elfman 1. Thought that was charming. Oh, I like the font that the movie uses for the opening credits.
That was good. Yeah.
It's a good font. This is a pretty movie to look at. As messy as the story is, and, like, as how everything looks, like, slightly too glossy and you wish, like, you could understand it better as a real living thing and not a series of special effects. Cinematography wise, the sets they choose, production design, very good looking.
The one thing I would say about that is I did not like how the entire fairy city was just 100% CGI. Like, that is, I mean, I understand it. They didn't really go into the city, so they only had to have a couple establishing shots, and then they did, all the extras and stuff on green screen and stuff like that. But it was a little bit off off-putting in that regard. It just, you could tell it was like, okay, this is CGI. That's fine, I guess. But it still looked good, you know? I just wish we would have gotten to see more of the fairy world and stuff like that.
One bit from the books that I am very glad made its way into the movie is the fairy curse. Like when they're frustrated at something, they just go, "Darv it," and that's like their "fuck it" or something like that. Yeah. And I like that that's still included in there twice. Like Commander Root's got her back against the wall, and she's like, "Darv it," and they don't explain it. It's like just there for us fans of the book. Like I can tell that they read the book. And there is some care to include things directly from the book, and there's enough of those that I'm still like, I feel okay about this.
A nitpick that I had that I thought was ridiculous is that when the fairies show up to Artemis Fowl and they do the like storming the beaches scene, no military discipline whatsoever. They are not in formations at all. They're just in like random clumps of things and just like, this is so messy and disorganized. Like, no wonder they lost. This is terrible. But yeah, it's an interesting film, I guess. I don't know.
I'm happy it exists. I want them to have, I have no concept of how well this has done if very many people have watched this. I would love for them to get another crack at this. I want to see them try again and like see what they can do next time. I was telling my friend that I was watching this with that I kind of hope this does just well enough that we get more quietly in the background, like how there's Netflix original shows that like you just know by name and you think one of your friends might watch them, and then you look at it and you're like, this thing is 4 seasons. I want it to be that. I want it to just be a thing that quietly, slowly runs in the background, and we get like 1 or 2 more of these things just direct to the streaming platform.
My harshest critique of this is, and I guess less of a critique, but more of it. It's like this thing is, I think at best, this is a like overly produced Disney Channel original movie.
Yeah.
So I can see, since it did go straight to Disney Plus, I can see them doing another one. But yeah, it hasn't done very good. I don't know about watch numbers and how many people have watched it, but looking at Rotten Tomatoes, it is sitting at a 10% right now with an audience score of 21%.
That still feels too low to me. Like this is,
I would call this you kind of mentioned it too, that we are fans of the book. Yeah. We know more about that stuff, which I also kind of said the books kind of had their time. Like, they're not really in the mainstream now. It was when we were younger, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So I think people coming to this new are going to be like, I have no idea what is happening or why it's happening. Like, we have that extra bit of information. Of just like, okay, I can see what they were going for. They almost did it. So it's not as bad as some people are saying, but it's still not great, you know. But that's that.
I think it's still worth watching, and worth watching enough that I want to see another attempt at this and how this thing could be fine-tuned.
Last thing I want to say is that one of the screenwriters for this is Hamish McColl, who we recently did a film of his on the Review Show, one of the other podcasts that we do here at the Whatnots. He was one of the screenwriters for Paddington.
Oh, Paddington is much better than this movie.
Oh, yeah. Miles ahead, light years ahead, fairy technology ahead of this one. And fun fact, he was also a photographer on the 1998 Parent Trap.
Oh, that's a good movie.
There you go.
People don't talk about how good of a movie The Parent Trap was.
He was also the screenwriter on Mr. Bean's Holiday and Johnny English Reborn. There you go. The other screenwriter was Connor McPherson, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with anything he's done. He did the Eclipse. What's Endgame? That's not Avengers Endgame. No consensus yet? What is this? I don't know. Oh well. But yeah. That was the last thing that I wanted to mention. All that stuff is like, this guy is from Paddington. Kind of, I feel like it should have been better than this if he worked on Paddington, because Paddington was so good.
Right. I am very curious about the backstory of this film. It being a property that was acquired by another studio 20 years ago. How many hands has this gone through? What were previous versions of the scripts? Yeah.
Yeah. Wild stuff. Well, let's see. Again, I'm not sure what will be next here on this podcast. Movies keep getting pushed back and pushed back. I would like to do one on Tenet, potentially, but I don't know if I really want to go out to a theater to go see that.
Yeah.
But we will see. Maybe Wonder Woman this fall?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure something out. Because again, we'll have to do something to make this not as sporadic as it has been recently. But don't forget that up on Patreon, we have an exclusive episode of the Reactor Core, with some more coming down the road. We were talking about movie trailers from the 90s. It's going to be a part of a series. We have movie trailers from the 2000s coming up next, and movie trailers from the 2010s, which we still have to record and do all of that stuff. So be on the lookout for that. You guys can get that at our $3 tier on Patreon. Go like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff. We are sitting at 73 subscribers on YouTube, so if you guys could subscribe to us on YouTube, that would be fantastic and help us get to 100. That would be amazing. Yeah. There we go. I think that's all of the stuff. So, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
I'm on the internet at WilkyWit, WILKYWIT. Did I spell that right?
It's on screen, so
if
you didn't spell it right, it's on there now.
I say it the same way every time, and I took a slightly different run at it, and it threw me completely off of my feet. While I'm there, that's my handle. You can on Twitter and on Instagram. Come talk to me about these books if you have read them.
Yeah.
I love them.
Indeed. You guys can find me at YoKyleSpringer on Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to stay up to date with all of our podcasts, we are at The Whatnots on Twitter. But that about wraps us up for episode 19 of The Whatnots Reactor Core. So I guess with that, we will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments down below if you guys thought Artemis Fowl was a good fit for Disney Plus, or if you guys would like a sequel or not, if they should spend their money on something else. In the meantime, go subscribe to our channel, which is right up here in this corner. Maybe go watch one of our other videos right down there, because that would help us out a ton. Until next time, goodbye.